Have you ever caught yourself replaying a conversation, word for word, long after it ended? Maybe it was something small, comment at work, or something you said to a friend. You lie awake, turning every sentence over. You feel that tiny ache in your chest, a mix of embarrassment and curiosity. It's familiar, almost comforting, yet unsettling. You don't even ask why you do it, and yet, you do it, over and over, sometimes for days. It's strange, isn't it, that your mind can trap you in these loops without permission. You wonder if everyone does it, or if there's something unusual about you. But psychology reveals that this is not random. There is a pattern hidden in the way you think, and most people never notice it. That pattern shapes the moments you agonize over, even if you think you're over them. I remember one evening at a cafe. A friend joked at my expense, and I laughed along, but the moment didn't sit right. Later, in my car, I replayed it. I tried every alternative response, every tone I could have used, and with each replay, I felt a twinge of regret. Why? Why did I need to examine it so closely? Researchers suggest our brains have a strange relationship with social evaluation. We are wired to notice subtle signals from others, to predict reactions, to anticipate consequences. But sometimes, that wiring goes quiet and private, running in the background without permission. That's when these loops start. You aren't just remembering. You're re-feeling, re-deciding, rehearsing. You might think this is purely negative, but here's the twist. It's rarely conscious. Most of the time, you don't even notice the invisible tug, the quiet testing of scenarios that never existed. And yet, these replays can shape your perception of yourself. You start asking yourself quietly, did I sound stupid? Did I say the wrong thing? I've noticed it in myself more than once. A simple dinner conversation, a brief comment to a stranger in a grocery line hours later. I'm running a mental film reel. I question my own reactions, my tone, my choices. At first, I thought it was anxiety. Later, I realized it was curiosity and something deeper, a subtle probe into the patterns that shape my life. Think about the last time you did this. Was it at night, alone, when the world had quieted? Or was it during the day, in a moment that should have passed? There's a reason these moments stick. They are emotionally sticky. Small, seemingly insignificant triggers lodge themselves into your memory, and cognitive patterns start replaying them like a broken record. But here's something I rarely tell anyone. Often, we replay conversations, not to relive embarrassment, but to explore possibilities we never acted on. We imagine courage we didn't show, apologies we didn't make, jokes that could have landed better. It's almost like practicing life in a private rehearsal space, but one where judgment is harshest, and yet, it isn't all conscious. Your mind mixes memory with invention. You might remember a word exactly, but the tone, the expression, the nuance, you fabricate those. Suddenly, your inner cinema feels like truth, and you start believing your own reconstructions, even though they are partial, skewed, emotional, human. Most people think they replay conversations to fix mistakes, but there's a quiet contradiction here. We rarely fix anything. Instead, we examine ourselves through a lens we only partially control, and every time we do, we learn something subtle about fear, pride, and regret without ever speaking it aloud. Have you noticed how certain words echo in your mind, long after they were said? A friend's subtle laugh, a colleague's tone, the pause that felt like judgment. These aren't just memories, they are emotional triggers, and our brain latches onto them, sometimes obsessively, to make sense of the social world we navigate without instructions. And yet, there's also intimacy in it. A strange kind of self-observation, almost philosophical. You watch yourself in these moments, quietly dissecting the choices you made, the emotions you felt. I find that it's less about regret and more about recognition. Recognition that human behavior is layered, messy, and full of subtle signals you barely notice at first glance. There's a time when I questioned my own motives. I thought I replayed conversations to judge others. Later, I realized I was judging myself, and it was harsher than any external judgment could be. That's when the psychological tension becomes clear. The replay isn't about the other person. It's about an internal negotiation you never signed up for. And here's a curious pattern. It often happens after moments where you felt slightly unseen, unheard, or misaligned. You wonder, did they notice what I meant? Did I express it clearly? The replay becomes a mirror, reflecting insecurities that rarely speak aloud, revealing emotional layers you usually ignore. Sometimes, the loop is silent. Other times, it's loud in your mind, like a conversation that refuses to end. You notice your breathing, your posture, your facial expressions in your memory. Every detail matters. It's exhausting, yet strangely magnetic. Why do we return to it? I think it's because the mind wants closure, but closure isn't the point. The point is rehearsal, and unlike real life, in these mental rehearsals, you have agency. You can try every tone, every gesture, every answer. You can explore subtle alternatives without risk. But here's the subtle twist. The brain doesn't always separate practice from reality. The lines blur, and sometimes you feel as though these imagined versions actually happened. I remember replaying a meeting at work. The words weren't harsh, but my imagined tones were unforgiving. Hours later, I still felt the weight of imagined judgment. Most people think this is stress, but it's not just stress, it's your mind examining itself, tracing patterns of decision-making, probing the self through social reality. And sometimes, it's about understanding your own tendencies, how you respond when tension rises, how easily you defer to others, how fear or pride subtly shifts your choices. Every loop is a lens, small and sharp, revealing something we rarely acknowledge. Micro-hook moment. Have you ever noticed that even the most trivial words in these loops can carry weight? That a joke or a glance might haunt you longer than real harm ever could? It's not logic. It's emotional architecture. It's subtle, and it's human. There's a strange beauty in this process, if you allow yourself to notice it. I've caught myself watching my own reactions, as if I were another person, imagining, observing, feeling. That quiet reflection is almost like a conversation with the self, a mirror without judgment, only recognition, and yet, recognition can be uncomfortable. You see patterns you didn't want to see, moments where you lacked courage, where you avoided risk, where small decisions compounded silently. But psychology reveals that noticing is the first step toward understanding the hidden mechanics of your behavior, not changing them, just observing. Sometimes I wonder if this replaying is evolution at work, a way to model social consequences without danger, to rehearse the unpredictable world of human behavior. And yet, it also exposes the subtle anxieties we rarely acknowledge. Why did I choose that word? Why did I smile there? What did my hesitation reveal? These small signals matter more than we let on. And here's something most people miss. Replaying conversations isn't evidence of weakness. It's evidence of engagement. A deep, persistent engagement with your own mind. The loops aren't failures, they are attempts to trace, understand, and experience the architecture of human interaction from the inside out. I think we also do it because it's private. No one can judge us here. We can replay, revise, critique, and explore without anyone watching. And in that privacy, our mind sometimes reveals truths we hide from ourselves during real interactions. And I can't help but ask, have you noticed the moral and emotional complexity in these loops? Sometimes we feel guilt, sometimes embarrassment, sometimes pride for imagined bravery. And each feeling is tangled with another. They layer like shadows across a wall, subtle, intricate, human. Perhaps the most revealing part is that even after hours, days, or weeks, you're still learning. Not facts, not advice, but patterns. Cognitive patterns, emotional triggers, the quiet architecture of your own decisions. You see yourself, and you see others, with a clarity you rarely speak aloud. And so, the loops continue, but they are not aimless. They are a mirror, lens, a quiet journey through the unseen layers of human behavior. They reveal what matters, what lingers, what touches us subtly, often without recognition. I find myself leaving conversations, sometimes years later, still considering their echoes. And I realize it isn't about fixing the past or predicting the future. It's about observing, watching the way your own mind dances with thought, emotion, and memory. And when the replay finally fades, if it ever does, there is a quiet realization. You are more than your words, more than your mistakes, more than what you thought others noticed. And yet, in those loops, you see the human self in its rawest, most intricate form. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps noticing is all we need. To sit quietly after the conversation ends,